And we should now be live.
Excellent.
Hello and welcome everyone to the Storytime Network, and where we bring you the Paradox Hour, and this is at least paradox adjacent, this because it is involving time and the past. Today we're doing our look at flashbacks, whether there's specific examples, tropes, and basically whatever. This actually reminds me of. You're supposed to cut in here with flashback noises. But yes, joining us on this awkwardly humorous episode is Jack
Hello there.
and Mill.
Hello.
Yeah, it was basically just the usual crew. We couldn't really get any guests on. It's not even short notice. We just are kind of incompetent, but we.
Well, we also couldn't think of anyone who would really want
Yes, but
to to this.
yeah. So without further ado, let's begin, shall we?
Yeah, first we're just going to go over the definition of what a flashback is, which is, well, it's basically just a narrative technique to show events that took place before the main action of the story. And sometimes during the main action of the story, just after that time period has already passed. So sometimes there's a flashback from, sometimes, say, Season 6 of a story, there's a flashback to something that happened in Season 2, for instance.
A particularly bad story will flash back in Season 6 to something that happened earlier in Season 6.
In the same episode.
And sometimes it'll flash back in Season 6 what will happen in Season 7.
That's a flash forward, and that's something entirely different.
Well, not if Season 6 is in the future.
Fair enough.
I mean, that's getting into the time podcast that we did a few months ago.
But like, that's kind of the point, isn't it? Is like, sometimes flashbacks work as a narrative device in a way that you don't necessarily expect, right? Because like, yes, flashbacks are cool and all, right? We all know that, but flashbacks can also be a way to tell a story in a non-linear fashion. That's generally not how it goes, but it's definitely a significant way of using them.
I will say that out of all the non-linear storytelling devices, flashbacks are probably the most common. Like,
oh yeah,
they're also the simplest. They're the hardest to get wrong as well.
Yeah, they're very easy to justify and very difficult to get wrong.
I'm not sure I'd say that. You can very easily you can overuse flashbacks, and you can very easily have a flashback go too
but
long.
you can say that for anything, right?
I mean, yeah.
You can overuse anything, really.
Yeah, tropes are tools more than anything else.
In fact, there's even a TV tropes page on the idea that tropes are tools.
There's a TV tropes page for fucking everything, except for people sitting in chairs.
Oh, no, there is. There's actually an entire sub-index for those, but well, that's for a later podcast. No, the thing is, flashbacks are obviously they're not always a good thing, right? There are times when flashbacks can disrupt the flow of a story. And
oh yeah. Like, you have met a villain, and right as they're about to be defeated, we suddenly get a
we'll get to that. We'll be talking about that when we have our Demon Slayer podcast.
Oh, I mean, no, I'm gonna fucking talk about that now. Don't have to go into a massive amount of detail, but we are going to be talking about it because it's one of the worst offenders for flashbacks.
I spiel real quick.
Yeah,
Can I finish my spiel? Can I finish my spiel?
Yes,
go ahead.
Sorry.
So, a bad use of a flashback is when say a villain is about to be defeated, and suddenly we get a flashback to their past to show that they actually had a really tragic life, even though we have had no prior indication of them having any sympathetic qualities whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. The other thing... No, go ahead.
Demon Slayer is a defender on this front.
The other thing about flashbacks is they can be used to basically be lazy and to fill out time, because certainly anime will do this. They will have, half an episode be a flashback to earlier events in the show, so that they don't have to, reanimate half, or they don't have to animate half an episode. They can just reuse animation.
The favorite recap episode that everyone loves.
It's not even a recap episode.
It's not even a recap episode. It's just, as I said, it's just half an episode. But recap episodes are also fairly bad in that sense.
And they do technically count as flashbacks.
Technically, yeah.
The only good recap episode that I will always cite as amazing is, of course, the Ember Island Players.
To be fair, that's because it's not a... It's basically not a recap episode at all.
It's not a traditional recap, no.
Yeah.
It's more of a calm before the storm type episode, to be honest.
Well, no, it's more of a... It's a character development thing.
Sure. But we are getting lost in the weeds a bit here.
Yeah, but that's kind of the... That's what we do. That's literally what we do for a living, more or less.
Fair enough.
Just get lost in the weeds. Speaking of weeds... drug trips are often also used as a tool for flashbacks.
Yeah,
that's a fun trope, isn't it? But I think we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves. Shall someone give something of a dictionary definition of flashbacks?
I already did.
Well, yes, but then we're moving on then.
Yeah, we're moving on to specific examples.
A character reminiscing of past events, relaying that to the audience.
Yeah, so would you guys like to go into your specific examples? Like your preferred specific examples for flashbacks?
Well, there are 3 series that come to mind for me when I talk about flashbacks, because flashbacks are very prevalent in all 3 of their narratives. The first is One Piece, which we decided to do this video right after the first One Piece episode, partially because flashbacks are such an integral part of One Piece's story and structure. And One Piece is one of the series that handles it really well for the most part. Oda even used a flashback to flesh out a side villain and make you sympathize with him in a way that suddenly...
Which one? There's like 4 of those, at least.
Your Pink.
Yes, okay, yes.
But yeah, it recontextualizes his seemingly silly behavior and makes him an actual tragic figure. And that's actually side villain.
Yeah, that's actually one of the other interesting things for flashback type purposes, is that context. Right? And recontextualization. Flashbacks can lend a lot in that regard, simply by virtue of the fact that you get to know a lot more than initially, and that can add a layer of depth that a character might have been missing, or even a scenario. Like, for example, I'm just spitballing here. A flashback in a wartime scenario in which you might only see the war from one perspective, but what ends up happening is that said war is more complicated than you'd think, and you get that through a variety of flashbacks, right? So it can... Basically, flashbacks can be a tool to make it so that the bad guys aren't so bad anymore and the good guys aren't so good anymore.
Yeah, the second example I was thinking of, speaking of good guys not being so good anymore, Stormlight Arc.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Because we are going to be doing our second Stormlight episode next week. So we decided to sandwich a flashback episode between One Piece and Stormlight. But yeah, flashbacks are also an integral tool to the Stormlight archive as well. Each book gives a new set of flashbacks to a different character. Book 1 was Paladin. Book 2 is Shallan, which we will be discussing next week. And book 3 focuses on Dalinar. I'm not going to go into it further than that.
So to be fair, both Paladin and Shallan are kind of cheating since they have a lot of supplementary flashbacks in the other books as well.
Not really flashbacks to quite the same degree, but yeah.
So yeah, Stormlight is a very good example. One Piece. What was the third one you were thinking of, Jack? Because I'm kind of blanking.
Lost, actually.
Oh.
Okay, yeah, no, that explains why I'm blanking.
That series actually kind of codified the use of flashbacks in recent media, in at least in American television. Because like basically every other series that has a flashback since Lost debuted models its flashback structure after Lost to some degree.
So someone who's never bothered with Lost, what's the rub on that one?
So for the first few seasons, at least, there were basically like it rotated focus throughout the cast with each individual episode for the most part, and most focus episodes gave flashbacks on the cast member getting focus.
Okay.
Sometimes it was done really well, like Saeed, Jack, Kate, Sawyer all had really good flashbacks, to my recollection. Sometimes not so much, but for the most part, they were very good at fleshing out the characters. Fourth season onwards, it doesn't use flashbacks quite. I don't want to go into spoilers regarding this, but suffice it to say, the formula changes a lot after season 3. And that is all I can really say on that matter.
Well, I think I get the basic gist of it. It seems like it's similar to Stormlight to a certain degree.
To a degree, yeah.
In how it does it, at least in the early seasons. So, what would you say is are some examples of the weaknesses of flashbacks as a trope?
Well, sometimes they can tell too much, is the biggest issue. Like, sometimes a flashback will go overboard and actually spoil elements of the story that should have been kept closer to the chest. Or sometimes they can absolutely also just destroy a character's arc or or just their ability to function as a character. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, and there are times when it's almost too much information.
Yeah. Sometimes it's unnecessarily detailed too.
So, and especially as with the Demon Slayer example, I don't want to kind of harp on that because it's a bit of it's not as simple as that, but I do want to say there are times when characters that don't need flashbacks get flashbacks.
Yeah, that's always
that can be a weakness. Is that like part of it is understanding that not every character needs a compelling backstory, right? And this is actually, it's like one of the things that amateur authors or like authors who are just starting out often, and sometimes this, even established authors can be guilty of this, is sometimes less is more.
Yes.
A lot of people don't necessarily get that all the time, but yes. The idea of less is more is is definitely important for
For
a lot
all,
of
for all,
things.
for all that that we can criticize Akira Toriyama on, his less is more philosophy on character design is actually really good, and it helps to sell a lot of his transformations, like Frieza and the Super Saiyan transformation.
I mean, Super Saiyan
Yes,
kind of
but
went
sometimes
overboard. Uh,
yes,
No,
yes,
the
but
original Super
sometimes
Saiyan, not the later ones, the original.
I do agree to some extent, but I will say sometimes he can take that a little bit too far.
mm.
Yeah. Actually, come to think of it, Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball don't really have a lot in the way of flashbacks.
No, I'm trying to think of some, but I mean, obviously, uh, I haven't actually watched Z. I've only watched the abridged, but did watch OG Dragon Ball, and I'm trying to think what sort of
Like,
flashbacks were in there, but I don't think there were many.
I can't think of any. There were very few, if any.
Uh,
Like the only one I could
you're right.
think of, yeah.
If anything, there were flashbacks to things we've already seen.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, and I mean that was that's the anime cheaping production or
Padding itself.
yeah padding
Oh
itself.
no, I mean even in the manga proper, there's occasionally flashbacks that really don't need to be there.
It's not as bad with manga as it is with the anime, though.
Yeah, but that's just a general rule of thumb. Difference in the medium.
So Jack, for your three examples, do you think you can come up with a best flashback and a worst flashback? So one that you think was done really well, and one that you think was done poorly, basically.
I mean, One Piece just has so many examples for best flashback. It's hard to choose one.
Well, how about this? What do you
If you
think
had to
in
twist my
One Piece,
arm,
for
I'd say
example?
either Brook or Robbins.
I will say there's also the issue of sometimes flashbacks can dominate the story a bit too much.
Yeah.
Right? When the problem actually, this is one of the biggest problems with flashbacks that I've just recalled, is that the problem with flashbacks is that the events are kind of set in stone, right? So to a certain extent, there's a bit of an element of tension missing because
There is a bit of a foregone conclusion, yes.
yeah, since like for example, if you know a character's alive, then they're not gonna die in the flashback.
Yeah.
And if you know like the character has both of their arms, then they're not gonna even lose limbs or something like that. So it's kind of like,
well, my take on it is, it's more like the ticking time bomb tension sometimes. Like in Law's flashback, we know Corazon is dead. We know he's going to die. The question is when and how.
That's a fair point, yeah.
So handled in that way, it works a lot. Like you know a character is going, you know, some danger or tragedy is going to happen. You are just waiting in anticipation for that tragedy to occur, and that tension is what drives the flashback.
In some respects, that's actually also a test for the author, isn't it? Is like, can they? Yeah. Can they make Can they establish that degree of tension despite the fact that it's a foregone conclusion?
Yeah.
And can they make the payoff to that tension?
So, yeah, that's kind of a neat way of handling it.
It is probably the best way to handle at least ones where we know the gist of what happens.
It's kind of related to spoilers in a way, isn't it?
Yeah.
As spoilers are admittedly sometimes really unwelcome, but the thing is, when it's a really good story, it kind of doesn't matter if things are spoiled or not.
Exactly. Not to mention, a lot of stories have some great rewatch value.
True. Though I will say, you think flashbacks can add to or hinder the rewatch value?
It depends.
I think it
For
does.
short,
I think it does depend on how well they're done. If they're too sort of lengthy, then yeah, they're gonna uh, they're gonna hinder things. But if they're well paced and if they reveal things you don't know, then yeah, like because especially on a rewatch, you can see these behaviors, um, having already watched or read it or whatever, and go, these are where these behaviors start.
hmm
You can link it up.
True. So mm, I don't know. I think do you guys have any experience writing flashbacks?
Yes.
not yet.
Uh, how would you say? What would you say are the most challenging aspects of writing flashbacks? Then, granted, we're all amateur authors here. We're not
Yes.
exactly any
Yeah.
sort of professional, but like, what do you think are your biggest issues when writing flashbacks?
I've only written the one, and it was very much sort of expositionary, I would say. Um,
That's a very good point. Is that flashbacks as an expositional tool
mm,
that
Mm.
can go horribly wrong if you do it poorly.
Oh, absolutely. Flashbacks, first and foremost, shouldn't necessarily be a tool of exposition, but they do need to be a way for the audience to find out the past
mm.
of a character or a situation. So they are kind of by necessity expositionary to a degree.
This is a bit of a semantic argument, but where do we stand on how should I put this? What what at what point is something a flashback, and at what point is it non-linear storytelling?
I think
I feel-
Pulp Fiction is a good example of both. Because in Pulp Fiction, we do have a singular flashback to Bruce Willis's character receiving the watch from his dad's war buddy. That's the only flashback in the film, but the rest of the story is very much a non-linear story.
No. What I mean is, okay, yeah. No. I understand. I think I understand what you're getting at. That's actually a very good example that I hadn't thought of. But is that the only way to do it, or like, do you think
Not
it's
the only way.
possible, or do you think it's possible for people to accidentally end up crossing? Like, what is the dividing line essentially, right? Like, at what point does an author accidentally cross from one to the other?
I think.
I think you have to sort of denote when the flashback starts and ends. If you don't do that, then it does become just non-linear storytelling, and it also depends on the length of the flashback. If the flashback goes too long, then it stops being a flashback and starts being, as you said, non-linear storytelling.
Probably a good example of that would be I'm not super familiar with it, but Berserk, I believe, has a very lengthy.
Yeah, Berserk is basically crosses into non-linear storytelling because it has a
I think
flashback.
like a dozen volumes or something.
Yeah, so
Golden Age is like a dozen volumes or something.
yes,
like that.
and I think that is more of a symptom of Miura actually realizing that he made a mistake by not doing Golden Age first, right? Like, I think the story works either way, but I do think it might have been from a place of regret because he was like, I really should have done Golden Age just out the gate.
Yeah, the opposite actually happens in Vinland Saga's anime, because
Yeah,
instead of starting
actually.
in medias res, they do it chronologically,
Which
makes
is
it harder
really
to
bad thing.
it makes it a lot harder to like Askeladd by starting starting it chronologically. Because in the manga, the very first chapter is focused on Thorfinn and Askeladd after Thorfinn joined Askeladd's mercenary band.
Yeah, and like
one could
it makes
one could also say it makes it harder to like Thorfinn, but you know that's a discussion for a different podcast.
I was gonna say that it's kind of okay. So it's kind of a dickish thing to say, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know what I'm saying? For those of you who have no idea what we're talking about, you're really not missing much. But the long and the short of it,
I'm sure we'll end up talking about Vinland Saga again at some point. But yeah, an example of using flashbacks and non-linear storytelling that I've just remembered is Firefly. There's an episode called Out of Gas, which flits basically between 3 different time periods. You've got the current time frames where the Captain Mal is trying to keep himself alive and then get the ship going again.
So for a second there, I thought you said Captain Mao, and I thought we were gonna have to.
No,
Mal.
Malcolm Reynolds, played by the amazing Nathan Fillion.
No, I know, but like,
yeah.
I just for some reason pictured Chairman Mao on a spaceship, and it's just like I can't get that out of my head now.
I mean, it would if you.
That's on you.
Now I'm thinking about like a TV show where you just stick a bunch of history's worst dictators on a spaceship and see what happens.
That sounds hilarious.
I feel like that's already like a Robot Chicken sketch or something.
I wouldn't be surprised. Anyway, so the current time frame of Mal trying to get the ship going, a little bit in the past showing the events that led up to the current time frame, which is the non-linear storytelling aspect, and then you basically get to see how everyone, including the ship, came together, which is the flashback element of it. So Mal is flashing back to how he met everyone on the crew. Meanwhile, the story is telling how the events led to this situation, and I think it's actually done quite well because it doesn't linger on in either particular aspect too long and let it sort of overshadow the rest of the episode.
Ooh, I just thought of another good show that has a non-linear structured but also has a flashback in it.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be Baccano.
Ah.
Oh, yes, yes.
Which, from those of you who are unaware, it's an anime that takes place in 1930s America, and it is excellent. But the first season, or at least most of it, takes place across 3 separate storylines for the most part. One storyline in 1931, a second in 1932, and a third in 1933. And the narrative for the first 13 episodes just shifts between those 3 timelines.
There's also a kind of epilogue in like 2014, or is it 2004?
I don't remember. But there is also a episode that is an entire episode flashback that takes place in the 1700s that explains where the immortality stuff came from.
The answer is Cthulhu.
Kinda. Maybe. Sort of. Mostly.
It's never really clearly explained.
I mean that just sort of sums up Baccano for me because I've only watched episode 1 and it always seemed confusing.
It is. It's like
it is. The title literally ruckus.
I will say this though. Nonlinear storytelling is another thing that is not. I mean, I don't think you can say any trope is inherently a bad thing, but the contextually speaking, what I mean is nonlinear storytelling essentially is one of those things that when you do it right, it adds a lot. And no, I'm saying that because it's directly related to flashbacks. Is that after a certain point, flashbacks have become like in the modern writing landscape. Flashbacks have almost become a crutch for some series, right?
No, I do agree with that. Definitely.
I think it's very problematic when any trope becomes a crutch like that, but especially flashbacks. There's something that, like, flashbacks are almost can be spoilers by the author, right? Like, I know it sounds counterintuitive. How can something from the past be spoilers? But often, flashbacks are in fact so pivotal to the current plot that it essentially overshadows the current plot, and that can also be a big problem when you're dealing with flashbacks.
A flashback should be, in essence, it should be something that contextualizes stuff, but should not overshadow like the main drive of the plot, which is like we have to form the heist, we have to take down the big bad, we have to solve this crime, and so on and so forth.
We have to do this crime, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So, we've gone a bit off topic. Can I say my examples?
Yes.
Go for it.
Okay.
Okay, so I've got 3 as well. I was going to mention the Firefly one, but already mentioned it. But I do like that episode. I think it is a really enjoyable episode. Haikyuu uses flashbacks a lot. Like, every team gets flashbacks. But the one in particular that I really like is in the final arc of the manga. So, spoilers. You get flashbacks to basically Kageyama's entire life. You haven't really seen anything before Kageyama's middle school incident, but now you get to see his entire life. And it recontextualizes pretty much the entire series, and it recontextualizes Kageyama's
How do you feel
behavior.
about that?
I like it. I think it really worked because, again, as I said, Hinata and Kageyama are the main characters, and so you only get you don't really get a lot of flashbacks from them because you saw how they started in middle school, how they came together in middle school, and that's all that really.
Oh my.
Whatever.
I mean, you have to admit.
I know. Oh, Haikyuu has a lot of subtext gay. I'm not even gonna try and deny it. A lot of it.
I haven't even watched it, and I can realize that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Promotional art and openings alone is just like.
I don't think anyone's gonna argue against that, but I do really like how it recontextualizes things, but it also does it in a way that makes what's happening in that current arc feel all the more impactful. I mean, I finished rereading the entirety of Haikyuu just a couple of days ago, and it really does just that last arc hits home, and that last arc is filled with flashbacks, and so the fact that Kageyama's does stick out is, again, it means something. That said, the amount of flashbacks that Haikyuu uses could probably have been cut down. Might not have been necessary to see as many flashbacks as we did for some of the some of the smaller teams. I mean,
so
it does work to make you the audience care about them that little bit more. But at the end of the day, then we know they're not going to win.
So it's a bit of a Demon Slayer issue, huh?
Not as bad, I don't think, because the pacing in Haikyuu is still pretty good regardless of the flashbacks. I mean, I'm saying that as somebody who didn't read weekly until the very last arc, so maybe reading weekly it was terrible, but I don't know.
It's a Shonen Jump series, so the answer is yes.
It's always yes.
I cannot think of a single Shonen Jump series that is not torture to read weekly. I say this as someone who exclusively reads Shonen Jump series weekly.
I'm trying to think if there is anyone. I don't think so, no. I think I do agree with you. It's torture to read weekly. So that's one example. The next example is Jujutsu Kaisen's flashback arc, basically, in the manga.
That is a very solid arc. The only thing is that I would say, and that's another good example of some of the issues that you can run into with flashbacks, is it's a bit abrupt.
Oh no, it comes out of nowhere, and it doesn't.
It comes out of nowhere, and it also ends out of nowhere. Like, you don't actually get, like, I'm gonna be real, I thought the Shibuya incident was still part of the flashback. I thought the Shibuya incident...
There's an entire mini arc between the two.
Huh?
There's a mini arc between the two.
Yeah.
I think I still thought Shibuya incident was a flashback for some reason, just because no, actually no, I know why. It's because it does open in the past tense.
Yeah, but Jujutsu Kaisen does that all the time. That's the thing. It does that incident report. So and so place, so and so time. This happened, and then it goes into it. So in a sense, this could be just an entire flashback, and the ending is just gonna be like I don't know, Yuji just fucking telling his story or something. I don't know.
So there's speaking of Shonen Jump.
Hold on, real quick. I do want to say something about the Jujutsu flashback that does well, and that it does do the stakes very well, because some of the flashback characters are characters we have no idea what their status in the current story is.
Yeah,
we have not met them at all in the current story, so it is entirely possible that they will either survive the flashback or they will die in the flashback. We don't know.
The other thing it really does well is it contextualizes the Shibuya arc, I think.
And
it contextualizes a lot of stuff that happens later.
There's also Volume 0, which really should have been in the main series in hindsight.
It should. Yeah. But I'm sure we'll get to the main character in that.
I was gonna say there's another flashback trope, which is technically a flashback but is actually definitely not. And that is in the I'm gonna use one example of a good series and one example of a bad series. The MHA or How I Met Your Mother style.
Oh, God damn it, How I Met Your Mother.
Since technically, How I Met Your Mother is 100% a flashback. And technically, so is MHA.
Yes.
Yeah. But with MHA, there isn't constant narration. It's just like, oh, this is the story of how I became the greatest hero. And that's all we get to indicate this is...
there is actually a couple of moments of Midoriya narration, just like, we didn't know what was going to happen next sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which is actually...
But that happens a lot.
It doesn't happen a lot, but it does... It
happens in a lot of different series.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's another thing, is that sometimes a series is just a flashback. But at that point, the idea that it's a flashback loses all meaning, because it's the entire series.
I mean, for MHA, it's like... Because it literally... All you get is, like, a paragraph of narration. You don't know, like, the fates of... The only character you really know the fate of is Midoriya. You don't know what happens to anyone else, and so there's not the same feeling of...
Deku doesn't die. At least not immediately, because the story seems to be told in a calm fashion, not so much a dying words fashion. And if it is dying words, I feel like they should probably, like, call an ambulance at some point, because, like, it's a long-ass story.
While we wait for the ambulance to arrive, let me regale you with my life story.
Oh, I've just had a thought. Persona 5, flashback or non-linear storytelling?
I have not played enough to judge.
Because obviously for certainly part of the game, we know that Joker is telling all of this to Sai, which creates the humorous situation of, them only having so much time and Joker going, and on this day, I went to the fishing pond and spent all my money on bait and didn't catch anything. So then I went back and had a bath. It was really hot though, so I overheated. Is this relevant? Yes.
Yeah.
Also, you know, if you romance Makoto, you have to tell Sai this.
Oh my god, you're right.
That's hilarious.
Which is
Also,
hilarious to
know what?
imagine.
Context kind of makes sense as to why she's not a romance option, because if you romance everyone, you have to tell her.
That's the other thing. Like, you tell her you're romancing her sister, and then you go, also, I'm romancing all of these people. I'm just gonna leave now. I'm not gonna take your phone. Fuck you.
yeah. There's some plot holes there that really, really make you think, huh?
But yeah. I mean, my instinct is to say flashbacks, because I think if it was non-linear, it would jump around more. But
half of it is flashback.
Oh yeah, no, it's not entirely flashback, because it does. The flashbacks do end after a point.
I do want to say that this is distinguishing between flashbacks and in medias res storytelling. Because in medias res starts in the middle of the plot, and then jumps back to the beginning to cover how someone got there before continuing on to the end. So I don't think that really counts as a flashback, but rather it's the in medias res storytelling device in action.
I mean, how we got here is listed under flashbacks, so I think it does count.
How we got here is kind of an important thing. There's also the flashback fake out. Right?
Yeah.
That's something that can be really annoying. But also,
it could be worse.
Really good. It could be fun. It can also be really, really annoying, potentially.
And then we get flashback.
What? You cut out there for a bit?
Then we get flashbackception, aka the flashback within a flashback.
Oh no. I actually can't think of an example of that off the top of my head.
The only example I can think of is the flashback in the Dressrosa arc of One Piece, where we get Law's flashback, and then we get Dofi's flashback within that.
Do we? Does that happen?
Yep.
Huh.
Wow.
Very brief.
That happened.
Yeah, it's basically framed as Doflamingo dreaming about his past.
Yeah. Just going back to my examples, I've just thought of another one, but I'll do my original one first. Dresden Files, Ghost Story. When Dresden basically... Does he actually tell the Leonshi, or does he just think about it and she happens to experience it? I think it's the latter. I believe it's the latter.
A bit of both.
And I think it's the latter, because I think Harry is just in the grave and starts thinking about it, and it happens because at that point he's a ghost in inverted commas, and is made up of nothing but memories. It just sort of starts flashing up. I think it wasn't 100% clear, but I think it starts off like that way, and Leia interrupts, and then Harry starts telling the rest of it, I think, if I remember correctly.
Oh, right. You're right.
I think that's how it goes.
You're right, I remember now. No, because Harry's also freaked out. He's like, why are you in my flashback? Or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So yeah. That's an interesting...
But I think it's just it's an interesting way of doing a flashback in general, but it's also a way of, this is an incident we've heard so much about throughout the entire series, and we finally get to see it. Basically.
Oh god, He Who Walks Behind, right?
Oh, He Who Walks Behind is also terrifying, but yes.
Fucking hell!
But oddly charming.
That flashback is still fucking disturbing.
And I'm gonna be real with you. He Who Walks Behind at least has some chill, right?
I suppose you could say that.
A lot more.
Has zero chill.
A lot more chill than He Who Walks Before.
Oh Jesus Christ!
He Who Walks Before had no fucking chill. He was just going full ham.
Throwing into a bit of spoiler territory here, folks.
I mean, are we just flashing back to things that have already happened?
But keeping on the subject of Jim Butcher, because I just remembered this one thinking about flashbacks. Codex Alera, Curse's Fury, and Isana and Araris's whole storyline in that book.
I think that's actually the only flashback we get in detail in the story.
I think it is, yeah.
There's a couple of incidental ones, but yeah, that's more or less the only major one we get.
Which is interesting. Because usually with major storylines like this, it's there tend to be a lot more flashbacks than there were in that one.
Which, again, is kind of just an interesting look at the idea that we've kind of become almost not dependent, but we've become completely used to flashbacks, right? Like the idea of flashbacks
are a really common tool.
Yeah, no, they've become completely mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
To an extent that I don't know that it doesn't even necessarily make sense how mainstream it's become. It does to a certain extent, but like.
Also,
do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I do have to say, I do want to go back to How I Met Your Mother at some point because I have words about that one.
Would you like to say some of those words just as a teaser?
Why tease? Just say the words outright. Like
the ending of the series fucking sucks.
Hours.
Yes. No, I don't want to spend 2 hours on How I Met Your Mother. It's a long show, and none of us want to spend the whole 8 or 9 seasons talking about it.
I don't want to spend 8 or 9 seasons watching it.
Under no circumstances am I allowing. If we ever do a How I Met Your Mother podcast, I'm handing in my resignation letter. But
no, the ending sucked, and it kind of rendered all the flashbacks moot because it destroyed all of the character, like a good 80-90% of the character development that took place in said flashback sequence. So yeah, the ending was really dumb and really bad, and if you want to watch How I Met Your Mother, just watch the alternate ending, which is actually decent and not a terrible...
There's an alternate ending?
There's an alternate ending. It's only about 5 minutes, but it doesn't destroy all the character development. So, it's actually decent.
Good for it.
But yeah, yes. It says a lot about how badly received the finale was that they had to film an alternate ending for the series.
I mean, to be fair, they really should have seen it coming, right?
The problem with How I Met Your Mother, I will say, is that they planned the ending for the series way back when season 2 was being filmed, because they were using, in the main framing device, they were using actors who are rather young and were going to age out of the roles at some point.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. How the hell did they get so much footage of the kids?
They planned it. So they had already decided on the ending at that point. So they filmed the ending, what they wanted the ending to be. But then about 5 or 6 seasons happened in the interim, and the characters changed and grew well past that.
Yeah.
And at this point, the ending did not work anymore. So there's a very good illustration as to why pre-planned endings are not always a good thing.
The other thing that probably played a part is they didn't know how many seasons they were going to get.
Yeah, I would say that's not a flaw of having pre-planned endings. That's a flaw of doing more seasons than you should.
It's a flaw of the serialized television format.
Yeah. Like there's examples of series that don't do that. For example, the German Netflix series Dark. Right? It had, for a more mainstream example, there's The Good Place. You know, familiar with that show?
Yes.
So The Good Place, very much, it could have easily gone for like 4 billion seasons, but they had an ending planned out, and they didn't go past that. right?
Yeah.
Because the show is over, right? It went 4 seasons and ended. That's it.
Hmm.
And that's something that far too many series just don't seem to know how to. And that plays into the
Oh no,
issue of flashbacks
you
as
are
well.
you are right. Shows a lot of showrunners don't have a plan for how long they want to go. They realize they are at the whims of the network, and if a show becomes popular, the network wants it to keep going on and on and on. So it's much rarer you get a show with a set storyline with an ending point they know that they want to get to, and then they actually end at that point and don't go any further past it. And a good example of a show ending at the right time, Gravity Falls.
Ah, yes. I will say Gravity Falls probably could have used a little more
It could have
time
used a
for some
little.
of the
It
plot
definitely
line.
could have used a little more time, but it's an example of a show that knew
It had a
when
beginning
and
and
where.
an end.
Yeah, it knew when and where it wanted to end, and it did so. It didn't sort of stick around too long. As you said,
What show are you talking about?
Gravity Falls.
Internet
Gravity
cut
Falls.
out. Oh yes, Gravity Falls, definitely a good one.
Just, it was the only awkward thing is when Mike and Elle got involved.
What?
Who?
Yeah, I'll don't worry about it. I'll tell you after the. It's
Anyway.
it's fan content of a specific type.
Anyway, so again, I'm on the Flashback TV tropes page and just remembered, a show that used flashbacks liberally, Phineas and Ferb.
Oh God.
Oh,
Doofenshmirtz.
the tragic backstories of Doofenshmirtz.
Poor Doofenshmirtz. I was gonna say.
I feel really bad for that guy.
Oh yeah, like
He
he's
just
not
suffers
a
so
bad
much.
guy. He's not a bad
Just
guy
like
at
once
all.
a friend. I'm pretty
You're
sure.
a bad guy, but you are not bad guy.
I'm pretty sure if Perry wasn't around, he just wouldn't do anything. Right? He
Yeah.
just does stuff so that they keep sending Perry because Perry is the only friend he has.
Which is kind of tragic in its own way.
Also, his family is almost entirely just dicks.
Yeah,
The only one who isn't is his daughter.
Even she's kind of a dick to him specifically.
Yeah, but
she's
that's
a
just teenage
teenager.
brattiness.
She's a
That is true.
teenager,
It's teenage brattiness.
and she gets
It's not
better.
like... Yeah, she does.
And then lightsabers get involved, and it kind of just gets really confusing.
I have not watched either of the two movies, by the way.
I'm watching the most recent movie. I need to do that actually. If I'm seeing if I've got
I need to
Disney Plus.
I need to do a rewatch of the series at some point.
Oh, that's gonna take you a while.
It's what, 5 seasons?
5
How
seasons.
many episodes is it?
Oh God, I don't know.
I think it's like 20 something episodes per season.
Oh no, there's more than that.
Oh fuck.
If each one is a day, and they specifically said there's 104 days in the opening.
133 episodes, 222 segments.
Jesus.
I call foul on that one.
Jesus Christ. Then
Season
again, it's
1.
only half-hour episodes, so it's not as bad.
Season 1 has 26 episodes. Season 2 has 39. Season 3 has 35. There's the Across the Second Dimension movie. Season 4 has 33 episodes, and then there's the 2 movies after that.
Good
Jeez.
lord.
Fucking hell.
Yeah, it goes for a while.
Well, I'm gonna have to do that at some point anyways, so we can actually talk about it on the podcast.
Hmm.
I wonder. Okay, we can get to that in a separate podcast. What do you think are some of your favorite tropes
Ooh.
regarding
So
Flashback?
I have one that's a hit or miss, but I do love the tragic backstory when it's done well, because it always does a great, when it's done well, it does a great job of giving a lot of depth and nuance to a character who previously did not have any, or who had less. And it just sometimes it peels away some mystique and makes the character feel more human. And sometimes it makes the character feel more nuanced than they were before. Like,
So I will say, tragic backstories are one that I have very mixed feelings on.
Oh yeah,
everyone does. Like, they can be done well, or they can be done extremely poorly.
Tragic backstories can be bad enough, but sometimes there's tragic front stories that are just as bad.
Oh yes, the tragic origin, a la Batman. But yeah, I will say that not every character has to have a tragic backstory, but when it's done well, it works great.
I think the more characters in a story that have tragic backstories, the less effective it becomes.
It depends, because like I said with the One Piece example, it at some point you expect all the major characters to have tragic backstories, but at the same time, you don't expect it to come for the minor characters. And when it does, and when it's executed well, it works great.
Again, that's you're talking about it being executed well. I'm talking about. I'll go back to the Demon Slayer example. I've stopped caring about the tragic backstories of all these demons because it's been done so many fucking times. Like the first couple of times, it did actually work quite well, but now that it's just happening for everyone, it's just like, fine, okay, I don't really care. I just want to get back to the battle now. You've been doing this battle for fucking 3 volumes. Just let it fucking end.
I will say, like, some of the backstories in the final arc are good, partially because it does help. It's only focused on a few characters this time. But at the same time, I do see what your problem is.
I will say I kind of like one thing I kind of like is when a flashback occurs and you don't really know who's involved. But what actually ends up happening is that the flashback is an explanation for the changes in a character, in the sense that it's what I'm explaining this very poorly.
Can you give an example?
No, that's why I'm explaining it so poorly. But the idea of, let's say you've got a character and then you've got a flashback about some potentially unrelated characters, but then you realize what ends up happening is that the flashback explains the main character of the flashback explains that they underwent great changes, and it turns out that they are the character you've been following in the present day that you already are familiar with. So, like, you know what I'm saying? You get the gist of what I'm trying to say, or no?
Vaguely, yeah.
Okay, simplest thing. Let's say flashback follows an unknown blonde-haired child, and the flashback ends and reveals that the blonde-haired child was in fact dyeing their hair, and they are actually the main character who has black hair.
Okay.
Do you get what I'm trying to say there?
Yes. Yeah. So let me try and put this into words. So it's
Let me give you the specific trope.
So something of a bait and switch flashback.
No, the specific trope is, and that character was me, or something like that.
Okay.
Hang on, let me find it. And that little girl was me.
Yeah.
This one. Yes, basically the idea is the character who you thought was completely unrelated to the main story turned out to be the main character, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Can anyone think of any examples? Because I unfortunately cannot. Okay, we can get off this topic. It's like it's.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm
sorry, I can't think of any
I'm going
examples off
through
the top of my
the
head.
I'm going through the TV tropes page.
But yeah, do you guys have Mill? Have you said your favorite trope
I
or
haven't.
one of your? Yeah, so why don't you just do that instead of just
Well, got a couple. The one where basically the character having the flashback is basically commenting on it, a la, you know, let's say the Curse's Fury one, where they're, you know, talking about and giving context to, you know, the character's thoughts, but also, you know, maybe snarking on it, that sort of thing. The other one is, again, for the name, I'm going by the TV tropes, the Rashomon style. So
Oh, I was gonna say that
I
one is
do
also
love
my
the
favorite.
Rashomon style.
several
Rashomon
characters
styles
narrating a
are really
past
good.
event, but with, you know, differences in
I
each.
really like the Camp
The
episode
Cam
of
Cam
that.
one, that's the one that I thought of when I first saw the trope, because that one is hilarious. The fact that you've got I can't remember what the name of their camp is, but you've got the Boy Scout XPs trapped on the flagpole, and they all give their different versions, and they're all biased in different ways. And somehow the most fact-filled one is said by the said by the character who only talks in grunts.
Who did we lose?
We lost somebody? I don't think so.
What was that?
Okay, yeah, but it is a very and is that the plot of Rashomon?
It is indeed the plot of Rashomon, the original Kurosawa film.
So the Kurosawa film, but not the book, right?
I don't know.
There's also a book, which I only know of because of Bungo Stray Dogs.
Inspired by the short story In a Grove by Ryunosuke Akutagawa.
Yes, that is the book. Yes.
But yeah, the Rashomon flashback works well both for comedic and dramatic purposes.
Yeah.
Because on the one hand, it can show just how unreliable a narrator can be.
Yeah, no. It is. What I was gonna say is that it is the intersection of the flashback trope and the unreliable narrator trope. Yes, thank you. Which is a very interesting little intersection, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So, do you guys have any other interesting intersections of tropes with the flashback trope? Okay, if we don't have anything off the top of your head, that's fine.
You know what I love, at least when it gets parodied, is when a character tells a flashback of something they weren't there for.
Oh,
and
yes.
Someone asks, "How do you know how all that happened when you weren't there for it?"
The thing is, people usually don't ask that question, which is why the fact that PFS did it is funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. How do you know about the parts you weren't there for? It worked really well with TFS with DBZ Abridged. But overall, it is a funny trope. Just when it's played well for comedy.
I mean, a trope that intersects, or very much should intersect with flashbacks, time skips.
Oh yes.
Yes.
So when there's a time skip and it flashes back to events that happened during the time skip.
And contextualizes the behaviors of the characters after the time
Yeah.
skip.
So how do you feel about those then?
I mean,
They can be done well or badly,
Yeah.
depending.
Yeah, but that describes everything.
One Piece did it well because several of the main characters are kind of isolated from the rest of the world during the time skip. So it's a lot easier to justify them not knowing this information and having exposited to them at several points, like stuff like the Payback War or the duel between the admirals. That kind of stuff they needed context for, because several of them, especially Luffy, didn't hear about it.
Yeah.
At that point.
I think when it goes poorly is when
I know what example you're going to use, by the way.
Oh yes, I'm certain you will. Is when the characters' personalities have changed so much over the time skip, and it tries to use the flashbacks to recontextualize them, but it doesn't work because it still doesn't fully make sense. Because
when you have characters have a drastic shift in personality, doing so over a time skip or off screen is generally a bad idea.
Yeah. So.
And Mill's going to use the example I'm thinking of at this point, probably.
Attack on Titan.
I knew it.
Horrific time skip. Horrific time skip. None of the flashbacks that you saved it.
I mean, to be fair, Mill, is there anything related to Attack on Titan that is not horrific?
I mean, there's actually some good moments here and there in the series, but overall, it's overhyped.
Levy.
Jack, we're hating on Attack on Titan right now.
Levy's fine.
Yeah, Levi's great.
If he'd have been the main character, he would have made Attack on Titan so much better.
Honestly,
he's pretty dumb, but also he's like pretty cool.
He's a bit of a hot take, but I think that Eric should have stayed dead.
That's not a hot take.
That is not even remotely.
It's a lukewarm. It is a very lukewarm.
Lukewarm at best.
But like I'm saying, like it would have.
I mean, we can get yeah, we can get into the issues of Attack on Titan.
We'll talk about it
on a podcast.
We're,
I'm sure we will have a podcast on Attack on Titan when it ends.
Oh, absolutely. That's gonna be fun.
I mean, this is just an example of a. It's just an example of a flashback that I remember is fun. Futurama, they have a flashback to Zoidberg and the professor's backstory, I think. And they start the flashback, and then it cuts back to present day, and somebody says, "Zoidberg had hair?" And the professor said, "I never said he had hair. If you chose to imagine him that way, that's your business." And then it goes right back to the flashback with him still having hair. But then even later on, it goes back. It specifically has Zoidberg with like hair gone white, and they cut back to the present day. Just like, I thought you said Zoidberg didn't have hair. Yes, he grew it and then it turned white. It's again, it's just that little poking at flashback etiquette, tropes, whatever you want to call it, that I do enjoy.
To be fair, Futurama, that's kind of its whole deal.
Oh no, it pokes fun at a lot of tropes.
I think that's kind of in line with the whole self-serving memory flashback trope.
I assume you have to go take care of that dog, Fuzzy?
No, actually, my parents are handling the dog at the moment.
Oh boy.
So, don't know what's up with that. She's being a bit needy today. Sorry, if it's bothering you, I can...
No, it's fine. It's fine. I just you sounded like you were going to step away to deal with it. That's so...
No, she's kind of just loud. Pretty sure she'd be screaming even if I was even if I was there.
Oh, I'm fully aware. That's
sometimes
how dogs
the dog
are.
Just screams. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Going back to flashbacks. I mean, we touched on Avatar a little bit, but you know, the flashbacks that Avatar does, especially the one that really, or the two, well, it's two because it's dual flashbacks throughout the episode, but the storm is done very well.
I was gonna say the storm is really good.
Yeah.
For flashback. The other episode that has a good flashback that sticks out is Zuko Alone.
Yes.
Zuko Alone is like it's a masterpiece of filmmaking.
Oh, it is.
It is a masterpiece of an episode, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's also one of the rare times we actually see Iroh before he became the person he is today.
Yeah.
Like, there's a rare look of character development, Iroh, which is very dissonant.
Yeah, he was kind of like a sociopathic genocidal maniac, huh? Not even a maniac. It was just business as usual for him.
So he's Dalinar.
Yes, actually. Oh my God, you're right. Dalinar is Iroh.
that just came to me. He's Dalinar.
Yeah.
Someone tell that to Gen. He's gonna love that.
I will.
I'm doing that right now.
Do it. Something.
Do it somewhere public so we can all see.
Another thing that I've just remembered, or another series that uses flashbacks to, or tries to use flashbacks to recontextualize the story. Naruto. That I don't think it does it very well because the recontextualization is often kind of worse.
Do we really need to talk about Nart and Bort? And Black? Black does that too. Black has a lot of flashbacks.
Bleach does not handle flashbacks very well, with a couple exceptions here and there, but for the most part...
Again, you say that as if there's anything Bleach handles well. Well, okay, no, that's... the power system is cool.
The flashback... the flashback that is Ichigo's parents' backstory is actually fairly good.
That's an okay one, yeah. I'll give you that. What were you gonna say, Jack? Or have you cut out?
Oh, no, I said my piece.
I think you may have cut out at the end.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's fine. But yeah, like the recontextualization flashbacks that Naruto uses, I just don't think work very well. Less because the flashbacks themselves are poor, it's just the recontextualization it's trying to do is generally worse.
Not to mention the flashbacks tend to be poorly integrated, with a handful of exceptions.
Yes, that is the other case.
Like, trying to think of a good flashback in Naruto, and I'm drawing up a blank.
I mean, again, it's not hard.
You say that like I remember any flashbacks in Naruto. Was there a flashback that recontextualized the Itachi situation, or was that just...
There was. It was
like several.
Sasuke Itachi fight.
Yeah, then yes, that flashback, because let's be real, it was better when Itachi was just a fucking villain.
Yeah, it's like...
Trying to give him a sympathetic motivation for it kind of fucked with him as
it ruined Itachi and it ruined Sasuke. Not that Sasuke was unruined at that point, but it ruined him further.
Sasuke has kind of always been the worst character in Naruto.
Oh, he absolutely has been.
Sasuke is also one of the rare characters who makes other characters worse just by existing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because every other character is less sympathetic by associating with him.
Yeah.
Or sympathizing with him.
Cough, cough, Naruto and Sakura.
Oh my god, don't even get me started on that.
We can do a Naruto video at a later date. We have plenty
Do we really want to? I refuse to even finish it at this point.
That is valid.
I can't be asked going through the Ninja War. It's so boring.
We can just summarize it for you, and the summary is plot armor.
Yeah.
Milt.
I know Neji dies, and that's all that's all I need to know.
Yeah, that basically killed the series.
I just don't care about it anymore. It's just so boring, especially after having seen Marineford, which is an actually good war in anime/manga.
Yeah, Marineford is how you do a big climax right. That's the midway point of the series.
I mean, when
Like-
we finally get to the end of Wano and reread that, I'm sure we'll have the same feeling.
Oh yeah, Wano is fucking great.
But that's a podcast for what 9-10 months in the future.
Going by how we're dividing up the arcs, we may not cover Wano until next year.
We'll see.
It really depends.
Yeah.
It really depends on what each episode. Because once we the Summit War saga, we're gonna have to start splitting up sagas into multiple episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really we were always gonna have to eventually switch to an arc by arc format instead of a saga by saga format. Let's be real.
We're gonna hit that by Summit War saga. That is when it's going to hit the arc by
We might
arc.
need to do that for as early as Alabasta.
Fucking hell.
We can discuss this off stream. Now,
On stream
Oh, yeah,
right now.
I've got
another thing about flashbacks in One Piece.
Mhm.
Because it does something that with flashbacks a lot of series don't seem to understand. When you're doing a villain flashback, you don't necessarily have to make them sympathetic. You just have to make us understand why they are the way they are.
Yes, that is a very
explanation,
Like,
not
Doflamingo and Big Mom
justification.
But Doflamingo and Big Mom both have flashbacks that contextualize who they are as a person, but they don't make them more sympathetic as characters necessarily.
Oh,
They
absolutely.
just make them more complex and nuanced.
And more terrifying. If you did,
Big Mom will forever be one of the most terrifying villains in fiction.
yes, just she's so.
Jesus Christ.
So I've thought of a couple more just going on the Viz page and looking at series.
You know what's even worse about Big Mom?
Go ahead.
What?
If she was still attractive, there would be a much larger contingent of the fan base who would not think she's a bad person.
Probably right. Yeah.
I say
Going by
this
how
because
people
Cradle.
have Going by how people have reacted to other female villains in other works, yeah.
Do you have any flashbacks in Cradle?
The presence reports are kind of like flashbacks.
Yeah. Actually, yeah.
Actually, they are. They just are flashbacks, huh?
It's a very interesting way to do flashbacks, certainly.
Okay, so would you like to explain, or should I?
You go ahead.
So basically, presence reports are reports from the intergalactic. Basically, it's the equivalent of the Green Lantern Corps, and they have a report. They have a database, and basically, it shows you.
Alright.
Basically, the reports show you said database. Database. Whoa.
No, it's different now. It's different.
Shut up! Shut up, Samuel! Shut up!
What do you mean?
I'm sorry, I have to say this. I love that they fucking... Not only did they not use database, they named the fucking song different. Or they got a song called
That is
different.
very-
It's
that
just
is very
fucking
cheeky of them.
hilarious.
It is cheeky as hell.
I don't know if it was
You
on
don't get
purpose.
it.
You're
We're
gonna have
referring
to
to
give me
Log
context on this.
We're
So-
referring to Log Horizon. The first two seasons used Database as the opening, but the third season is not using that. It is instead using a song called Difference.
Yeah, that was my reaction.
It is apt, to say the least.
Oh, it's just so fucking hilarious. Anyway, getting on to other... So, would you consider the short run of the Dr. Stone Byakuya manga a flashback, technically?
That's a very interesting question. Where do we
Kind
fall?
of, sort
on
of,
time?
maybe-ish.
I mean, Dr. Stone
It
has
really depends.
Dr. Stone has flashbacks anyway, so we can discuss
Yeah,
those.
it already has flashbacks within the main course of its story.
But just
I think that's kind of redundant.
Yeah, so by that, so Volume 0 kind of falls in that camp too, huh?
Yeah. Any Volume 0 or
Prequel.
Or
Okay, yeah.
prequel,
What's
yeah.
the difference between a flashback and a prequel?
So a prequel takes place pretty much entirely in the past and doesn't have any present day contextualization. Like it doesn't have a framing device where characters like, oh, this is what happened back
Does
so and
it
so in
need
the
a framing
past.
device though? Like that's actually a question we should have asked earlier on. Is does a flashback necessarily need a framing device like that, or can it be standalone?
No, usually
just
it's
have-
just usually it's just
It's
characters
like-
remembering something happening or
True,
dreaming
but
of
like for
something in the
example,
past.
Jujutsu Kaisen didn't have a framing device at all. Like it just kind of for the flashback arc.
Not until the end,
Literally,
certainly.
the only indication, yeah, the end it just has Gojo
Wake up.
rejoining the main crew at the end of it. Yeah, so I guess it's just Gojo remembering it as a dream.
But
Also, were they
Which makes sense. What?
For Gojo and Ghetto banging.
no.
That's a very
I
important
mean,
question.
Gojo radiates bisexual energy, so I would not be surprised.
I mean, me personally,
But
I don't think
neither here
any,
nor there.
I don't think any sort of shipping thoughts for Jujutsu Kaisen.
Really?
Yeah,
I do not have much in the way of shipping thoughts either, but beyond the occasional bit here and
I
there.
mean, one of the recent chapters certainly had some ship tease for a very specific, but very popular subgenre.
You can tell us off stream, but that
Anyway,
is definitely a subject for another video.
yeah. Getting back to Dr. Stone, I mean, the one that really hits hard is Byakuya collecting the was it gold? I think it is in the stream.
Platinum. It's
The platinum. I knew it was a valuable metal.
It is also a very rare metal.
Byakuya platted the past.
Every time the story flashes back to Byakuya in the manga, it's just it hits hard.
He did kind of have a very tragic life later on.
He did,
He did.
but he's
Like,
also
he
a
deserved better.
he's a fantastic dad. He is a fantastic dad.
He is an amazing dad and an amazing character. He's easily a strong frontrunner for best shonen dad.
That's not the highest
there's a
bar.
lot
Let's-
of-
Again, that's like not hard.
It's not the
a lot of
highest bar.
Though he does somehow manage to be both a dead dad and also a present dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
Which
is
is
kind of
interesting.
impressive. But one of the things with Byakuya is that his flashback helps make us realize that he's actually one of the few characters who is permanently gone from the story because he is actually dead. Rather just in case.
Right. Because, like...
His flashback actually has the consequence of permanently removing him from the story.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, isn't it? Is that they've successfully pulled off one resurrection in the story, so you know.
Yeah, but there is still the specter of permanent consequence because Byakuya is thousands of years dead, and there is no bringing him back. Unless Senku somehow fucking invents time travel.
That's not out of the question for this series. Let's be real.
I mean, it's Senku and it's Dr. Stone. I would not be surprised if he did pull it off, but I would be impressed if he didn't.
Are we fine done talking about Dr. Stone, or do we want to mention
Yes,
any more?
I believe we are.
Yes.
Okay,
What did you-
I've just remembered
you wanted to
another.
mention?
I've just remembered another one. Bones. The
Oh god! Oh no!
the 100th episode was a flashback to the very first case the main character solved together, and in universe it recontextualizes everything, not just out of universe.
Oh yeah, I do like it when some shows do something like that, where it's like a flashback to how these two characters met, or a flashback to this character's first case.
That is a fun time. Though again, that can actually be kind of jarring, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes the character is very, very different from how they are, and we always hear about that, like in the past.
Yeah.
and when you actually see it, it's kind of like a. It's basically what would happen if Dalinar was handled poorly, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of Bones, it works because in the pilot episode, it's very clear that this is not the first time the main characters have met or worked together, and the only the only reason the flashback happens is because another character assumes that and writes a book based on that, and the main characters have to set him straight. Poor Sweets, he deserved better.
Don't remind me. Good lord, it was just so unceremonious. I'm
It
just like,
was
Don't tell me he got killed off unceremoniously.
fairly unceremoniously, yeah.
God fucking damn it! Why do they have to drop bridges on characters left and right?
Plus side,
Oh, no.
the person who replaced him, Aubrey, was actually pretty good.
yeah, but like the fact that he had to be replaced.
I know. It is sad. It's definitely sad, and it's definitely annoying. But as I said,
I always
if there
hate it
was
when character deaths are handled poorly.
yeah, but if they, as I said, I'm fairly sure that they didn't want to. I think it was a case of the actor having other
It
things
might have
to
been a
do.
contractual dispute sort
Yeah.
of thing.
I don't think it was a contractual dispute.
Or rather,
I think it was just he had other stuff to do, like other things to work on. Um,
I mean, they could have just put him on a bus or something. They didn't have to kill him
yeah,
off.
yeah.
yeah, no, it could just be that he didn't want to do it anymore.
Again, they could have just,
I don't remember.
oh, he got a reassignment or some shit.
I don't remember exactly, but as I said, Aubrey who replaces him is nice and snarky, so I like him. Um, another.
Oh, there is another flashback trope that is very fun, which is
Go
kind of
ahead.
connected to what you were just talking about.
Mm,
The whole episode flashback, where it's
yes.
just like a whole episode or a whole entry just entirely told in flashback.
Yes.
Or though in more serialized media or in novels, it'd be like an arc focused on a flashback.
Yes. So Jujutsu Kaisen, or as
Jujutsu Kaisen's a good example.
Jujutsu Kaisen did.
Would you say, okay, yeah, this is an interesting thing. What do you think are the most important things to consider when you're having a flashback in a serialized work as opposed to a complete body, right? Like
So
a flashback
in a
a
manga.
book-off novel
In a
versus
serialized
a
work,
comic book or manga.
in a serialized work, the biggest, most important thing with flashback is to have it paced well and placed well in the narrative, so that it doesn't feel like it's dragging or detracting from the present storyline. So, like, if you have like a whole volume of a manga focused on a flashback, then it should have a lot of reveals and or recontextualization going on that help to better frame the story and that better transition things back in the present. Like Full Metal Alchemist is a good example because we get basically a full episode and a half in the anime uh, focused on the Ishval Civil War.
Mm.
Well, and it's given a framing device with Riza telling it to Ed.
Yeah.
And actually, it's multiple different characters telling the story to multiple other different characters.
Mm.
But Riza telling it to Ed is the one I remember most. That is one of the better examples I can think of.
Mm.
Probably find more. Oh fuck. Okay, this is a bit of a spoiler. So Mill, I suggest you don't listen to it if you are still planning to watch Madoka.
Oh, I'm not.
Okay, so episode 10 of Madoka is basically
Yes.
it's basically an entire episode flashback devoted to fleshing out who Homura is and why she is like the way she is. And it just like
I mean, the answer is lesbians.
well, that's part of the answer. The other answer is time travel.
But the time travel is directly because, you know.
Yeah. Madoka is not subtle with its subtext.
Except in true Starlight fashion, it is just subtext and
Yeah,
never
it's just
confirmed.
very.
They're very good friends.
You try telling that to literally anyone who's watched the series.
Yeah, but like they're just as mad about it as I.
Hmm. Yeah. Regardless, that's probably one of the best full episode flashbacks I can think of because it just it radically upends the story by revealing just all the shit that Homura went through
Mm.
and how it has changed her as a character and how it has influenced her actions in the present story,
Yeah.
as well as what Monika's deal is and why Homura is so protective of her beyond just the clear lesbian vibes going on. But
So I've got the list of characters that were telling the story of the Ishval massacre and war. So Riza to Ed, Dr. Knox to Al, Lanfan, and May, and Dr. Marco to Scar.
yeah, it does help that we do get multiple perspectives on the Civil War because, like, they all have very different experiences with the war as it happened.
Yes.
And basically all the characters being told it need to be told it, especially Ed and Scar,
Yes.
because them learning about this is a very big part of their character arcs.
Mm-hmm.
Which is another device flashbacks can be used for as a good method of character development.
Mm.
Kind of like a character being reminded of their past and or the past of another character and resolving to do something to turn themselves around.
Yeah.
Or something along those lines.
In terms of, well, it was in a sense a whole episode flashback, but not the season finale, the penultimate episode of season 1 of House, where the framing device is that House is lecturing to these medical students and gives an example of three patients with leg pain, but with 3 different diagnoses, and it turns out that one of them is actually House himself. And it starts off as this hypothetical, but as the episode goes on and on.
When I was very young, and it confused me a lot because I didn't understand the idea of subtlety and plot.
Yeah, I mean it's a very good episode. It remains one of my favorite episodes because it is done so well, and and the reveal that it is actually House is really well done. But as I said, it's sort of whole episode, sort of not. It's sort of in the middle, I would say.
There is another full episode flashback that I can that is from Lost actually.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the flashbacks are just like partial episode flashbacks, but so basically the framing device, the plot of Lost kicks into motion when a plane breaks in half over an island and crash lands, and yet somehow a large number of the passengers survive. Most of the first season and a half is focused on the survivors in the front end of the plane, but in season 2 we're introduced to the survivors from the tail section. And in season 2, one of the episodes is The Other 48 Days, which basically details the story of the 48 days between the crash and the tail section survivors meeting the front section survivors.
Yeah.
And it's a really good episode. It's basically shows like, oh yeah, these guys went through a really hellish experience, especially even compared to the people and the main characters we've been following so far. But
I can't believe I forgot all these, but The Simpsons uses whole episode flashbacks a lot.
Yeah, it does.
To varying degrees of
Simpsons
success as the show gets older.
Yeah,
I
Simpsons
heard
is
that
kind of
there's
like
one episode with a
Futurama
lot
in
of
that
flashbacks.
respect, right? in the
Um,
sense that it.
Oh,
Well, no, it
fuck,
tries to
fuck.
play around with a lot of tropes.
well,
It
there
doesn't always do it well.
there is one example
Falls.
of Gravity Falls is another one. But there is one one incident in the or one instance in The Simpsons that it does messing with the flashback tropes really well, which is I believe the one about Maggie being born, where it shows Homer trying to get business for the Bolorama by shooting a shotgun in the air, and Lisa goes, "Mom, make Dad tell it right. That's what actually happened." Oh.
Oh no.
Again, it's like it's playing with your expectations. But yes, Gravity Falls with the Tale of Two Stands episode.
That one is a very good episode, and it honestly had a tough job following after one of the best episodes in the series, but it basically just like after watching it, we know what Stan's deal is and why
Yeah.
he is the way he is. Like,
Again,
for the
recontextualizing your
longest
character.
time, for the longest time, we there was a lot of mystery around Grunkle Stan, and the
I will
flashback.
say, even if Gravity
really,
Falls had not added anything whatsoever to the world, just the fact that it taught me what the term about the term grunkle is enough.
Yes, I did
Yeah.
not know. I did not know Grunkle was a thing.
I don't think it was a thing.
It might well not have been.
It might have been like a dialect thing where Alex Hirsch grew up, which is now, because of him, entered into the mainstream.
Which I'm okay with.
Yeah, there have been much worse ways to introduce things to the mainstream.
That's for another podcast, though.
I mean, we do have a Gravity Falls podcast lined up at some point, which is going to be fun.
Yeah, sometime this year, hopefully. Might take a while. Who knows?
We can discuss it off stream. Are there any other good or bad flashbacks you all can think of? Because I'm starting to run out of ideas.
Speaking of The
Simpsons,
the one episode that basically ruined Principal Skinner.
Oh yeah, the principal and the pauper. So basically the episode where it is revealed that who we know as Principal Skinner is not actually Principal Skinner, and is actually Armin Tamzarian, I believe.
Something like that, yeah.
And tells that backstory, but I think even the fucking writers knew how bad it was, because they basically, at the end of the episode, they basically went, "Do you want to never talk about this again?" Sure.
Yeah, that's
the
something
thing.
A lot of writers could learn from, is just the ability to agree to never speak of this again.
Though it just get mentioned a couple of times.
That episode basically marked the downhill decline of The Simpsons, apparently.
Oh no, it does. That is the first really, really bad episode of The Simpsons, I think. And it just gets worse from
downhill
there.
from there.
Yeah. It does get brought up in quite a humorous fashion, if I remember correctly. Believe it's an episode where Lisa gets a new cat. And decides to call it Snowball 2 or whatever, just because they've got the bowl with that name on. And Skinner is just walking past and goes and comments on it. And Lisa just goes, "I think it'll be fine, Principal Tamzarian." Carry on, Lisa, and just keeps walking. But yes, that is an example. I mean, as I said, as you get further and further into The Simpsons, the flashback episodes become worse and worse.
I mean,
I think you can say the episodes just get worse and worse.
Yes, the episodes in general get worse and worse, but the flashbacks in particular, especially the ones that focused on Homer and Marge's backstory, that do not make sense given what we know. Like, again,
so basically, it's safe to disregard pretty much everything after season 9.
Season 9 is the general consensus. Yes.
Season 9 to 11, I would say, yeah. 11 at the
Yeah.
latest.
Yeah. I also want to talk about real briefly a couple of video game based flashbacks. We
Ooh,
talked
yes.
about
Go on.
Persona, but one of the few decent Call of Duty games, Modern Warfare, had a flashback where it basically shows who the actual big bad of the story is and how the protagonist and his mentor Price first ran into him.
Well, I think the Modern Warfare games have at least one mission each game that's a
Yeah,
flashback. Because I believe in
yeah.
Modern Warfare 2,
First,
there's one where you play as Soap with Price.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The first one, it's you play as Price.
Mm.
You basically find out who the big bad is, and you shoot off his arm and think you killed him, and it turns out, nope, he's not actually dead.
Mm.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Always fun.
That's a really hard mission as well, actually.
I haven't played it in ages, but
I played it a few weeks ago, that mission in particular, and the bit that's really annoying is when you have to hide in the grass and avoid basically coming into either bumping into or coming into sightline of a line of enemies.
Jesus.
Oh
Fucking
god,
it's
stealth missions in a non-stealth game are
oh
always.
yeah, it's fucking awful. I did that part like half a dozen times before finally accidentally getting it right.
Jesus.
But yeah, I think so. Yeah, let me think. In the second Modern Warfare, it's Soap and Price, and I believe they're on some sort of again. It's another stealth mission. I believe.
Why are there so many stealth missions in Modern Warfare?
I don't know.
God.
Trying to think of other games with good flashbacks.
It's kind of hard because there's not a lot.
Mm.
There's not a
Most
lot of
of it-
games with flashbacks, period, let alone good ones. Well, there's a lot of games with flashbacks, though. No, okay, yeah, I was just.
Most video game flashbacks are just cutscenes, not actual levels.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting. Oh, right. There's one other thing we can talk about before I think, and that'll be all for what we've got left.
Well, I've got a couple more that.
Okay.
I've got a couple more that I do want to talk about briefly.
What I was gonna say is one of them is in fact. Why am I blanking?
Do you want us to talk about our examples while you try and think of yours?
No. Interactive flashbacks. That's right.
Ah, yes.
Interactive flashbacks can be very, very interesting.
Mm.
By which I mean not just in video games, but in a story as well, in which characters kind of play out the past,
Mm.
and that's what what form the flashback takes.
Yes.
You guys familiar with what I'm kind of talking about?
Yeah.
Sort of, yeah. I'm trying to think of examples of it. So when you say playing out, like they don't realize they're in a flashback, or they are watching themselves go through the
When characters enter someone else's flashback.
Oh, so like a pensive flashback.
I really don't want to use that god-awful serious example, but yes, that's what
That's the trope name, dude. That is the trope name.
Is that really just the
pensive, yeah, pensive flashback is the name. That's why I didn't want to
God.
mention it, because yeah, don't like it.
I don't
We also
like it either, but
we also
it
have
is kind of the codifier.
yeah, we also have a podcast scheduled for Harry Potter, just for those watching.
which will mostly just be bashing it.
Oh, absolutely.
But to be fair, I do have a few people who like it who I can get on, and we can like have an actual informed discussion.
It would be probably a good idea to have multiple perspectives on the series.
Kind of like what we're
I
gonna do
do
for
not
Wheel
plan
of
on-
Time, because there's like a
Yeah, I've
lot of
never
people
read the
who
books.
really like Wheel of Time.
Yeah. I have mixed feelings on that. But anyways, I do want to talk briefly about what is known as the Flash B plots, which I did discuss a little bit in with regards to Lost,
Yeah.
which is basically when there's an A plot in the present day and a B plot that is a flashback.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's episodic, like in Lost. Other times it's a season long storyline. Like with Arrow is probably the go to example I would say for that,
Mm.
because the 5 seasons of Arrow basically like each cover a year in which Oliver was on the island in the flashback sequences.
Yeah.
So basically, it's a season-long running thing of the main plot in the present day plus a B plot in the flashback, explaining how he survived on the island for so
Yeah.
long.
I did forget that that was Green Arrow's origin story.
Yeah, it is kind of odd.
Mm.
There was a point in which he punched mountain lions as well.
Ah, jeez. Comic books, am I right?
Oh dear.
Comic books, like anyone who says that manga is like weird or just anyone who complains about manga need only be reminded that anything a manga does, comics probably do it 400 times worse and more often.
Oh, Jesus Christ, yeah. Oh, DuckTales also has a flashback B plot episode. But I don't think either of you guys are familiar with it.
I still need to watch it because we're gonna do an episode on it, but I'm not.
The reboot is actually really good. We'll probably do the episode after the series is over, because
right. What was the series sacrificed for? I remember seeing that a lot. Is that
I don't remember it being sacrificed for anything.
no? I mean, like we're losing DuckTales, but at least we got X.
Oh, we're getting Darkwing Duck.
Ooh, that's gonna be even better. Like normally, I would not have high hopes for Darkwing Duck, but like in the context of modern day Disney cartoons, yeah, Darkwing Duck sounds great.
Yeah. It also helps that they're basically springing Darkwing Duck out of DuckTales. So there is the possibility.
There's a decent chance we're just gonna get more
showing up. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There's a decent chance it's more of a hidden sequel than anything else.
Yeah, it could be. Hopefully. But yeah, the third season is going to be the last. I think there's like half a dozen episodes left in the season. That
before DuckTales Cinematic Universe. I would not be opposed to that whatsoever.
I would not be opposed either. DuckTales has a lot going for it. Yeah.
Speaking of flashback B plots, Futurama does that a couple of times as well.
I'm not surprised. It's Futurama.
Futurama does basically everything a couple of times.
Yeah, Jurassic Park is the big example.
God damn it! God damn it! Why you gotta remind me of that episode, man?
Because it's the biggest example. There's also Look at the Fryish, which does not get enough love when you talk about fucking heartbreaking Futurama episodes.
I don't think love is the right word for heartbreaking Futurama episodes.
Love to cry over? I'm not sure.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah.
I need to rewatch Futurama at some point. It's been a while since I watched.
You really do. It's so good.
I don't think I've watched the whole series either. I know I've watched most of it though.
Yeah, I've probably missed episodes here and there, but I've watched most of it. What I was going to mention is we've pretty much been focusing on serious flashbacks, but comedy shows obviously have flashbacks used for comedic effect.
Oh yeah,
obviously a
much more mixed bag.
Yes, obviously a bad example of that is the fucking Family Guy example. Oh, Lois, this is like the time when I did so and so with so and so. Flashback, like that. That's the bad version of it. But
I still don't know why you even bothered with Family Guy.
Because I was a teenager and dumb. and because it was the cool thing to like at the time.
Yeah.
I
mean, it could. I'm not even gonna get into it.
I don't want to talk about Family Guy. The ones that I wanted to mention are Scrubs and Brooklyn Nine-Nine, both of which use comedic flashbacks to great effect. Brooklyn Nine-Nine loves to flashback to Holt's career and give him, varying levels of era-appropriate facial hair and hairstyle.
Yep.
As you do.
Oh, and then of course there was the Scully and Hitchcock flashback, which was a surprise.
Yeah. That one makes less sense given that we've flashed back to them even further back and they were still slobs.
Yeah, they were both competent and attractive.
Yeah.
Also, to be fair, that's a good example of Chekhov's gun coming back in the sense that apparently one of them had the highest successful case record.
Hitchcock, yeah.
Yeah, and that kind of explains why.
That was the episode where he got a tattoo of himself trying to blow smoke off the barrel of the gun. It just looked like he was actually sticking it in his mouth. Oh, yep. Terry Crews and your reactions, I will never get tired of them. But Brooklyn Nine, as I said, Brooklyn Nine-Nine does comedic flashbacks very well.
We will all be doing an episode on Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
We absolutely will.
There's a lot of
yeah
to get through.
Scrubs also does them to good effect, I feel. Flashing back to the likes of Kelso's early days or Cox's early days.
I still haven't watched anything of Scrubs.
You really need to. It's really good.
I do need to remedy that.
It was the.
Go ahead, Fuzzy.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead first. Well,
it's basically the modern Seinfeld in terms of what it did for sitcoms, like contextually, like as a medium.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if you do end up watching Scrubs, don't watch season 9.
No,
it's not worth it.
Never even just pretend it doesn't exist.
Pretend it doesn't exist. Even the fucking actors and creator barely acknowledge its existence. Like I've been listening to their podcast. They barely recognize their existence. When a guest comes on and says, "Yeah, I don't count season 9 as a proper season," they don't say anything about it. They know it's bad. But yeah.
So kind of like season 1 of Parks and Rec.
Is that a similar situation? Huh?
Yes. From what I've heard,
Parks
yes.
and Rec is not really good, and it's not indicative of the rest of the show, really.
But yeah, like other good Scrubs flashbacks, janitor backstory flashbacks, because we're not entirely sure if they're actually no. The actual flashbacks he has, we are fairly sure are real, which is always so. It's always nice to get like an insight into his mind, especially the
fact that they're real is kind of scarier than if they weren't.
I mean, yeah, because there's fucking one where he's a genuine, like, 100-meter hurdler. He starts the race off smoking a cigarette and then ends the race smoking a cigarette. But he also frames that flashback by saying that he slept with Jimmy Carter's daughter. Which, again,
there's a decent chance that's the truth.
That might be the truth. We don't know. We just don't know. This isn't really a flashback, but in an episode, Neil Flynn, the actor, appeared in The Fugitive as I think it's just a no-name cop. But he obviously appears in the credits, and like JD watches The Fugitive and sees him, and just sits up and goes, "Oh, janitor." But it's implied that that's actually real. Is the thing. Like the janitor actually appeared in The Fugitive, so it's like, what the fuck? Like that level of inception is just hilarious and weird.
There's feelings on this, and yeah. I don't know what they are.
I love Scrubs. I do love Scrubs. It's It's one of the shows of my childhood.
I need to binge that.
In fact, give me a moment.
You're adding it to the schedule, I know.
I am in fact adding it to the schedule. I don't care when we get to it. It's 20 years old. It can wait.
Yeah.
But I do want to talk about it at some point.
Of course.
Do we have anything else to talk about?
I think we're good. We've kind of gone overtime as well.
I don't think we've gone overtime. We've gone for hour and 55.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah, no, I think we can wrap it up. I think.
Yeah.
So, thank you everyone for joining us. It's been fun talking about flashing back to flashbacks. This you can consider this entire episode as a flashback episode for flashbacks.
Let's flash back to the start of the episode. That was a fun time, wasn't it? Oh, I've just remembered. I don't like to talk about IT Crowd too much because of its creator. But it did do a very funny flashback thing where it had a character visibly go into a flashback and the other character's like, what's he doing? Why is he looking over there? Just and then just looking, just like, are we supposed to be seeing something? What the hell is going on?
The playing with the tropes is always fun.
Yeah.
It's just so, but yes, thank you everyone for joining us.
We will be doing some D&D tomorrow, and our next episode of the Paradox Hour will be next Thursday when we discuss the Stormlight Archive Book 2.
In which I'm gonna have to grab some guests for that, but
oh yeah,
I
have
basically
some guests lined up. All right.
Have them lined up. So thank you everyone. Thank you, Mill.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Jack.
You're welcome.
Hey, remember that time when our home was taken over by this eldritch horror being of infinite fluff and darkness?
Oh, is that what it is in the corner right there?
Yeah, the one that we didn't talk about at the beginning of the episode.
Ah, good times.
Yeah, let's just leave that alone. I'm pretty sure I remember it stabbing me at one point.
Yeah, it does have a knife. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. Bye-bye.